A very pleasant evening to you out there. Many thanks for joining us on another edition of the program National Talk on ECWA Television International. We're live on Facebook and YouTube at ECWA Television International. You can do well to join the conversation. We'd like to know your thoughts on what is happening in the nation. Tonight on the program, we shall be beaming our light on the appointment of public office holders at the federal level as well as state level and the expectations of Nigerians on the appointees. In the studio tonight to discuss these, I have Barrister Emmanuel Mense Madaki. Good evening and welcome to the show.
Good evening, Joyce.
How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Despite your busy schedule, we had to squeeze time to be here. Thank you for coming.
All glory be to God.
Yes, let's go straight into the business of the day. President Bola Tinubu, on assumption of office as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, has within the last few weeks commenced appointment of key officials. And recent is the immediate retirement of service chiefs and the appointment of Nuhu Ribadu as National Security Advisor, Major General Christopher Musa, Chief of Defense Staff, and then Major General Taurid Lagbaja, Chief of Army Staff, Rear Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, Chief of Naval Staff, and then Air Vice Marshal Hassan Abubakar, Chief of Air Staff. Others are DIG Kayode Egbetokun as acting IGP, and then EPA Odin Deye, Chief of Defense Intelligence, Adeni Adewale as acting Comptroller General of Customs. And before this appointment, we saw the announcement of the appointment of Femi Gbajabiamila as Chief of Staff of the President, as well as one-time Governor and Senator George Akume as the SGF. I just want to get your thoughts quickly on this appointment, your assessment as well of these individuals.
Basically, you will understand and agree with me that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not a first-timer when it comes to governance. From 1999 onwards, two-term governor of Lagos State, we have seen the track record of how he was able to bring up Lagos to one of the most recognized states in the whole of Africa, not just Nigeria. And we also come to terms with the fact that we are operating a constitutional democracy. And in a constitutional democracy, there are texts and contents of every system of administration to be deployed. And of course, the involvement of President Ahmed Bola Tinubu in appointing these persons is just to ensure that, yes, he kicks the ground running. And of course, he has done that. These are people that have a track record of excellence. These are people that when you see their pedigree and their antecedents, you know that indeed they have succeeded. Just to bring you to terms with the appointment of the SGF, of course, it was just a way of telling people that indeed he's after competence and that people who have actually succeeded. George Akume was a contemporary governor in Benue State, just like Ahmed Bola Tinubu. And that the list goes on. Look at Femi Gbajabiamila, the Chief of Staff. He's the longest serving member of the House of Reps. And not that he did not win this election, he won the election. And for the 6th time, he won the election to be in the National Assembly. But because of interest and because he wants to join hands and forces with President Ahmed Bola Tinubu to ensure that they drive the economy of Nigeria and also the issue of governance to a very conceivable light or actually length, so that people will be able to appreciate the mode and modalities which President Ahmed Bola Tinubu has actually started. And you see this, the appointment of service chiefs, you come to terms with the fact that these are people that have succeeded in their careers. For instance, we know that if it was going to be a political jamboree or a political appointment, he would have actually resorted to people that voted for him or go to the regions that actually voted for him. For instance, General Musa is from Southern Kaduna, and we know that is the PDP that won in Southern Kaduna. But then he did not consider that. He considered the track of excellence of this man. And he said, look, despite the fact that I did not garner votes from your area or from your axis, I'm going to actually make you one of the service chiefs. That is very okay. That is very commendable. Some of us actually before now had thought maybe it would be just like a business as usual, compensating political allies, with political positions and appointments. But then Tinubu has actually moved from that axis. Even people that we thought ordinarily would actually form part of the first appointment. Just like the position of the SGF, a lot of people had thought that Simon Bakola alone, being the DG of his campaign, would be compensated with that appointment. But this man did not look at that axis. He looked for somebody who has succeeded in his state and who has a track record of excellence and appointed him as his SGF. That tells you that the prognostications, or will I say the predictions people had about Bola Tinubu, that he was not going to succeed, actually is actually disgracing and embarrassing most of them. And of course, what should be of priority to us is Nigeria first. The interests of this nation should be topmost priority to all of us. Whoever that this man is actually going to appoint, he should be somebody who is going to have the interests of the nation at heart. We're beginning to see for the first time in this country that appointments for the first time, is the first few days in office are cutting across all geopolitical zones. From the service chiefs, you could see people from southern Kaduna, you could see people, Igbo people there, yes, of course, the Yorubas are there, and then the SGF from Benue State. This tells you that irrespective of our political differences, we have a cause to chart, we have a nation to drive at, and we have an objective that we must achieve. And that is exactly what President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is doing. The fact that I did not vote for him, whoever that did not vote for him, of course does not mean that we should begin to pass scathing remarks. Our prayer for every government should be that that government should succeed. If Tinubu succeeds, Nigeria has succeeded. If Tinubu fails, Nigeria has failed. Because whatever Tinubu is doing, the nation or the world is watching. And that is why we should pray for our leaders. And of course, even the Bible has advised us that indeed we should submit to constituted authorities, and we should try as much as we can to pray for people in governance. Our prayer should not be for these people to fail because we didn't vote for them.
Okay, let me break you there, Barrister. Are you concerned about the process that brought these people to power, the emergence of well, let me start with the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Well, these are issues that are in court.
Because I've heard some individuals, even presidential candidates, saying that if you must be called Your Excellency, the process that brings you to power must be excellent. So are you concerned about the process?
I agree. As a lawyer, I feel for every electoral process, where it involves one or two people, there must be a disputing party. There must be a party who will say, no, I do not agree with this process, no matter how clean the process is. So long as it is a process that is manned by human beings, not God himself, you should not expect perfection. But then we have always said there should be substantial compliance so that the people out there will see that indeed there was actually something to write home about. That notwithstanding, a president has come to stay, because he has been voted, he has been sworn in, he has taken the oath of office and the oath of allegiance based on the constitutional provisions. But then, aside that, we know that indeed the matters are in court. And of course, anything we're going to say, whether the process was actually genuine or not, is a matter for the court to determine. And just like they said during the electoral process, the electoral umpire said, look, if you have any grounds, you cannot begin to challenge it now. We are not a court. It is only when we make our declaration that you will now have something tangible to say, okay, INEC did not do right, or INEC did right. And that is what you will now have to approach the tribunal with. Of course, some of us passed a lot of scathing remarks. We criticized the process, we excoriated everything and said, look, the process that brought Ahmed Bola Tinubu was tainted with so much irregularity. But then, it does not lie in our mouth to judge. It lies in the judicial umpire, as constituted under Section 6, subsection 6 of the Constitution, that the determination of the rights and liabilities of persons shall be determined by the court.
Okay,
so
let me take you to the conversation now about the service chiefs. Like I spoke earlier on, President Bola Tinubu has actually called for the immediate retirement of the previous service chiefs, and then we have new ones that have since assumed office. Now, one of which is Nuhu Ribadu, who was one-time EFCC chairman between 2003 to 2007, and there are a lot of arguments about his emergence as the national security advisor. You recall that recently there were 8 names of special advisors. He was one national special advisor on security. People were asking, is he going to be the national? And then we saw his appointment as the national security advisor. But then there has been heated argument that since 1999, we've been having major generals emerging as the national security advisors. Now we are having someone with police background emerging. So some people are asking the question, how will the relationship be with the other major generals and all of that? But my question is this: should this be a problem? And what do you think about these arguments? We know that in other climes, these are things that are obtainable. So here in Nigeria, we are having people say, oh, this person is having a police background and all of that. Should this argument hold water?
Well, in a constitutional democracy, just like I've always reinforced in my arguments, we are operating a constitutional democracy. We are not operating a military government. And since we are not operating a military government, are there sectional provisions that say that for you to qualify as a national security advisor, you must attain a certain level of security expertise? Or is it because from 1999 till date we've never had somebody outside the military who has actually occupied that office? I think if it's because since 1999 we have never had somebody outside the military that has occupied that position, then I think the argument to say that Ribado is not qualified is actually unfounded, because I feel the primary essence of every government, according to sections 14 sub 2b, is the security and welfare of the people. And since security is topmost priority, now our quest should be this national security advisor is not usurping the powers of the service chiefs. And now we have seen the service chiefs who have been appointed. Is there any police officer who has been appointed as a service chief? The question is in the negative, aside the IGP. Now, the military, the chief of defense staff, is he a police officer that is manning it? The chief of army staff, is he a police officer? And the chief of naval staff, is he a police officer? These are positions that are exclusively meant for the military. But to say special advisor on security, they have even changed the name. It used to be national security advisor, which of course Sambo Dasuki was there and all of that. But this time around, they have changed it to say special advisor on security, just to ensure that let us be concerned about the excellent job that will be done. Because all these things are just petty sentiment that do not add anything to the body of progress as far as I'm concerned. If this man, Nuhu Ribadu, succeeded as an EFCC chairman, has a lot of security intelligence, and of course, Tinubu has found him worthy of occupying that position, because, of course, if you remember very well, there were a lot of write-ups, by Ribadu, which, of course, he attacked the government of President Buhari, wherein he said that, of course, the issue of Boko Haram was introduced by President Muhammadu Buhari, just, of course, he wanted to win election, blah, 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 and all of that. Of course, if this man has all this kind of information handy with him, and you think he will help the government to nip this issue of Boko Haram in the bud, why not bring him to power? Why not bring him to the limelight so that he'll be able to assist the government towards combating and truncating the forces of Boko Haram? I think that should be the driving force. So his employment, whether he's a man with a police background or a man with a military background, our major interest should be, is he somebody who has a capacity to help President Tinubu to achieve the security objective, which is actually contained in his agenda? And I think that should be the driving force.
Indeed. And again, it has been like a ritual in Nigeria that when there is transition, you see governments going on to change service chiefs. Don't you think that this might have effect on their morale as individuals? Or because over the years we've been having challenges of insecurity, and then anytime there is transition, we always see changes, and it comes with a lot of expectations. Like we're mentioning their names, these are people with good antecedent. Like when you check their record, they are well schooled and experienced and all of that. But even amidst the changes, we still have security challenges. So could it be that there's problem with this ritual of new government coming in, and then, because like I said on another platform, a different program, I was talking about the fact that most of these people that were retired, the ex-service chiefs, it didn't come as a surprise. They were at least expecting that, yeah, and all of that. So don't you think this will have an effect on their morale, even as serving chiefs, knowing well that at the end of the day you might be discharged and all?
I think if these people were appointed for a very long time to work, the president has the prerogative to be with people who are willing to work, because this time around he will have of course utmost powers over them, and of course he can be able to direct them on what to do and what not to do. Remember, he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So if these guys are people who are actually products of a different government, and of course you find it actually incompatible to operate with them, you have the sole prerogative to change them, because you must work with people who are loyal to you. You must work with people who have the same vision and objectives like you. You must work with people who are actually seeing the objectives and the visions you have and what you want to achieve for that nation. And I think that should be the driving force for me. I'm actually a liberalist. I am not a believer that something must be done hook, line, and sinker. If at all, Tinubu found them people that have succeeded, and of course they have been in position for quite some time, what have they done? Have we had any deterioration or amelioration of the security challenges in the country? If at all we have not had, or if at all there are a lot of allegations against them, because remember, in the military, even these junior officers in the military have always complained that their officers don't treat them well. What the government will actually budget for them and give them, these guys don't give it to them. And that is why some of them have actually had cause to petition their superior officers and saying that indeed these people are not ready to actually nip this issue of insecurity in the bud. And if Tinubu, who came with full force and actually different agenda, and of course he has examined them and found that indeed I cannot work with this person, let me bring people whom I know, I am so sure and confident of their track record, and I'm very confident that indeed they are going to succeed in this light. I think that should be the driving force, and that should be the monumental objective that each and every Nigerian who is actually interested in the growth and progress of this nation take it into consideration.
All right. Nigeria is a multi-ethnic nation, of course, and then there are always expectations of representation, yes, zonal representation, everybody being carried along. I remember how that the Muslim ticket of the APC generated a lot of argument. People kicked against it, even within the party, and we saw how that the president came out to say, oh, I was after competence, not about religion and all of that. And people even fought that, saying, oh, do you mean in our zone we don't have anybody that's competent? That's an insult to us, that it led to some people even leaving the party or even campaigning against the party. Now, looking at the appointments of the service chiefs, we had some sector, some zones, geopolitical zone, saying, oh, we are not represented in these appointments. The North Central is saying, oh, at the 10th National Assembly, we were not. Now coming to this appointment of service chiefs, we are still not represented. Looking at all these appointments, should, especially the security challenge that Nigeria is faced with, should geopolitical zone be of utmost priority?
Yeah, in as much as we want a national spread in the appointments, the driving force should be, like I told you, should be competence. And I know we have competent people in almost all the regions, which is very important. But so far, can we say that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has not been fair enough? The SGF is from the North Central. George Akume is from Benue State. We know that Ribado is from the Northeast. We know that Femi Gwajabiamila is from the Southwest. And then we have the service chiefs. General Musa is from Southern Kaduna, Northwest. And of course, we have Lagbaja, who is from Southwest as well. And we have, Emmanuel? Yes, Emmanuel is from Southeast. So this is a national spread, for heaven's sake. And of course, you could see that these are people that have succeeded. He didn't just pick anybody from Southeast. He didn't just pick anybody from North Central. He was so meticulous enough to say, okay, fine, George Akume, 1999, 2003, 2007, you were the governor of Benue State. You succeeded. We were contemporaries. He was in Lagos, Akume was in Benue. And he saw the potentials in him and said, good, let me bring you. Were there no governors who were actually contemporaries with him from 1999 to 2007? They were. Of course, did they pick any of them? Why the choice of Akume as the SGF? And of course, you know, the SGF wields a lot of powers, and he occupies one of the highest positions in the land. He gave it to the North Central. And then Ribado, National Security Advisor or Special Advisor on Security from Northwest, Northeast. That's a very good one, and the other positions too. So to my own thoughts and my own conclusion, Tinubu is starting on a very good footing. Of course, you cannot take away sentiment on the basis of region, on the basis of this. And of course, you could look at it, he did not even base himself on religion. Despite the Muslim ticket that almost all of us excoriated. I berated that arrangement. I wrote an article on the Muslim ticket, Nigeria being a secular state that adopts all manners of people, even the pagans are actually in the country, and of course they must be given a listening here. We have Christians, we have Muslims, and we have all sorts of people in the country. And of course, we berated that Muslim thing. But this time around, we have seen that despite the fact that, yes, the man is a Muslim, the vice president is a Muslim, but he's operating on a radically different scope altogether, which of course the driving force to me that Tinubu is seeing his competence. And of course, it is too early for us to begin to say, this region is not carried, that region is not carried. We saw what happened when Buhari was in power. Almost all appointments were Muslim dominated from the northern Nigeria. If you check, out of 100% of appointees under Buhari's regime, 88% of them were from northern Nigeria. That was a callous government. That was a very myopic and then region-driven appointment, because he did not have a national outlook, and that is what we are berating. So it is high time for us to begin to look at all these things with an eye of people who actually wants to see this country succeed, who want to see this country progress, so that all of us will sit someday and say, indeed, the labors of our heroes will never be in vain.
Indeed, may the labor of our heroes past not be in vain.
Amen.
Again, there is an issue that is of utmost priority, and this is what we expect to see among our security agencies, like talking about synergy and corruption and cooperation. Because when you don't see cooperation amongst the interagencies, at the end of the day, you see that all the goals of achieving national security become fruitless. We've seen situations where you see rivalry between these agency. You see situations where blame games is actually taking place. In fact, there are times where you see street fights between DSS and then the EFCC. There are times you see military and even the police fighting themselves and all of that. And when such situations are seen, it baffles Nigerians out there. So where lies our hope? Who can we run to if agencies that were expected to see working together for in order to achieve same goal, national interest, national security, are fighting themselves? Where lies our hope? Again, some people will say, if this is actually the situations, then this more like the image of our security agencies that have been berated. We had recently an ex-militant saying that, most of the issues of theft and all of that, our top militaries are involved, and that's a general statement.
Bunkry.
Yes, Bunkry. So he was making the statement on national TV saying most of our top security officials are involved in it, and you just begin to think, the image of, if this is it, no wonder you see on the street today, people no longer respect all of these people. How can we achieve cooperation and national, let's say, synergy between all of these? Because most of these fights we see on the street, if you ask me, show of shame. If you're seeing that, then where lies the hope of the common man? So what's your take on that?
Basically, I said the mode of recruitment of officers into all our forces and all our security agencies must be visited, because it should not be recruitment based on nepotism. It should not be recruitment based on regionalism and, of course, religious sentiment and all of that. The driving force should be the competence of those officers, and of course, their moral rectitude and probity of those officers must be checked. Because what we keep saying is quite lamentable. This is what we did. This is not what we bargained for as a nation. We bargained for a nation where peace, justice shall reign supreme, and of course, security is topmost priority. Just like I mentioned under section 14(2)(b), is a constitutional provision. The issue of security, that the primary aim and objective of every government is what? Security. And then they said welfare, the second aspect of it. So if security is topmost in, of course, some of the provisions of our constitution, I expect that the president, the present administration should take it with utmost seriousness. They should not treat these officers with kids' gloves. Whenever an officer is found breaching the code of conduct for his own engagement and the rule of engagement, that officer should pass through the rigors of discipline, and of course, if he's found wanting, he should be dismissed. There are 1,001 people out there who want to join all these forces, but because they don't know anybody, and that is why I said the mode of recruiting these officers must be visited, and of course, a very formidable standard must be set, that each and every person who wants to join this should not only respect the oath he's taking, but he should also have the interest of the nation at heart, and he should also look at the sanctity of the agency, the security agency is joining. And of course, the service chiefs that have been appointed, they should be able to sit back and look at all these anomalies happening in almost all sectors and almost all aspects of our national life in terms of security, so that they will be able to fine-tune their activities and of course give us hope as the common men. And of course, we know that if at all we cannot sleep with our eyes closed, then it means there's a problem. We're in a nation where humongous amount of money have been budgeted for security, but what we have is actually not optimal enough for us to say indeed the monies that have been earmarked for security in the country are actually used for those purposes. So these are some of the things that this present administration is being challenged, especially by me as a person, and of course other persons alike, that this country must take security with utmost sincerity, because sincerity of purpose is very important. He has kicked the ground running, he has hit the ground running. We expect him to do more. We expect him to challenge these service chiefs as soon as they are sworn in and take their offices, so that they will be able to look at all these things hook, line, and sinker. And at the end of the day, I bet you that we'll be able to be proud of this nation once more. But if he derailed, if he allows politicians to actually confuse him and derail him, just like the way Buhari started on a very good footing, and of course, all of us were applauding him. But just like every successive government, that is what they do. But we should be able to be driven by formidable forces of sincerity, honesty, and of course, having the interests of this nation at heart, and that should be the driving force and the only thing that should propel us into agreeing and accepting the fact that we have a nation to work with, we have a nation to build, and we also have a government we must all support, so that at the end of the day, we will be proud of Nigeria, and indeed, Nigeria will be home for all.
That's a very powerful one there. And like I said earlier on, this appointment cuts across not just the federal level, but even at state level, because it's transition, and of course new governments are in place, and we're seeing appointments left, right, and center. In Lagos State, Barrister Bimbola has been appointed by Sanwo-Olu as the SSG. In Plateau State, Architect Samuel Nanchang Jato has been appointed as the SSG. And we also have the Attorney and Commissioner of Justice, General Philemon Daffy, Moses Mwan as Senior Special Assistant on special duties to Governor Mutfwang. And then we also have in Kaduna State, Governor Ubasani is retaining the SSG of El Rufai, former Governor Balarabe Lawal. And then in Kano State, Abba Kabir appoints ex-Ted Fund boss Abdullahi Bafa Bichi as new SSG, and then Shehu Sagagi as the Chief of Staff. Well, I would like you to make comments on all of these appointments at the state level. But before then, let's just go on this quick break. When we return, the conversation continues. It's National Talk.
Hello viewers, my name is Amaka Ocheke. We anchor the program The Living Room right here on ECWA TV International.
You are welcome to watch us every Monday.
The Living Room is a very interesting family program where we discuss everything you want to know about family.
Talk about our children's mental health.
Keep watching. Our program is always here, 5:30 every Monday. We want you to ask questions. We want you to phone in and drop topics that you want us to talk about, even on our media handle on Facebook. We are there. So keep watching, keep listening. The Living Room.
Democracy is the theory that common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Join me every Friday, 7 p.m. on National Talk for analysis as well as in-depth perspective on issues as they unfold in and around Nigeria, as well as an opportunity to add your voice. Staying with us. In case you're just joining us, this is National Talk on ECWA Television International, and alongside Barrister Emmanuel Menzi Madaki, we have been looking at the political appointments by President Tinubu, as well as at state level analysis of the service chiefs and the expectation. You can do well to join the conversation by dropping your comment on our official Facebook page at ECWA Television International, as well as our YouTube page at ECWA Television International. Our phone lines are now open for you to call in and make your contribution. Before we went on the break, Barrister, I was talking about the appointment at the state level. Of course, it's transition. Everybody's looking for who to work with. The governors cannot do the job on their own. They need all of those people. And like I said, in Lagos State, Barrister Abimbola was appointed as the SSG, and in Plateau State we have architect Samuel Nanchang Jato as the SSG, and then we have Philemon Duffy as attorney, and then Commissioner of Justice Moses One, Senior Special Assistant Special Duties. And in Kaduna State, the Governor Ubasani retains Erufai SSG, Balarabe Lawal, and then in Kano State, Governor Abba Kabir appoints ex-Ted phone boss Abdullahi Bafa Bichi as new SSG, and Shehu Sagagi as the Chief of Staff. What do you make of all these appointments?
Yeah, important.
These are just few amongst
yes,
the others.
Indeed. Indeed, charity begins at home.
Yeah.
Let me start with that of Plateau State. Of course, quite commendable. These are people that have succeeded in their careers. I know Honorable Philemon Duffy, the Honorable Commissioner, Attorney General of Justice, Commissioner for Justice of the state. He is somebody who has actually succeeded as a private legal practitioner who has had experience for over 30 years in private practice. And of course, what you can make out of that kind of a person is to see his exhibition of private legal expertise in the public life. And of course, Sam Jatau is not somebody new on the political landscape. He contested for the governorship election of the state under the platform of PDP in 2019. And of course, he has actually contributed his wealth of experience as actually a very successful architect in his field as well. And the list goes on. Going to Kano State, Sagagi is somebody who, of course, I've had contact with him. I know him as somebody who has succeeded as well. And of course, it is not out of place that in Kano State, a barrister, a legal practitioner, a fellow colleague, has been appointed to be the SSG, SGS of the state. And of course, in Kaduna State, Ubasani appointing the former SGS of the state to continue in that light. Of course, it's not out of place because there is no rule that says that he cannot do so. of course, governance should be more of continuity. What your predecessors have done that you are so pleased with, you continue with it. If there are policies that are undermining the progress of the people, undermining the aspirations and yearnings of the people, those are the kind of policies you have to abort them. But if there are policies that are people driven, if there are policies that people are actually at home with it, you continue with them. It should not be like a normal routine that if this government comes, we begin to change everything. Like, no, this act of rascality in governance must stop. But then, if things have been put in place, machineries have been actually set up for you to kickstart your own administration, if those things and policies are driven by people or are such that people are actually at home with it, please, governors must stop all this sort of rascality of uprooting all what they see planted by the former government. Because you see, in Kano State, I was even told there was a roundabout that was constructed by the former governor that the present governor came and said, look, I don't want to see this. What has roundabout got to do with people?
There have been a lot of issues, especially in Kano, about the witch hunts and all of that. A lot of people have likened the situation, even though the governor came out to defend all this demolition that has led to even loss of lives of some citizens and all of that. But should that be the case?
That shouldn't be the problem. That shouldn't be the priority. And you know that, for instance, the roundabout was constructed, by taxpayers' money. And these are monies that have been earmarked for such projects. Why not just look, okay, fine, if there are actually architectural problems, engineering problems, or building deficiencies, you look at those issues and begin to find a way of fine-tuning them rather than destroying all that the former administration had done. For how long will you continue to do that? You have now forgotten about what actually brought you into power or what people voted you to come and do, and you have now taken interest in all sort of pettiness just because you want to appease your political godmasters or your political godfathers or for your followers who are actually not happy with what the former administration has done. I think that should not be the driving force. What we should be interested in is to seeing that indeed things are done the right way. And of course, Kaduna State, I am not surprised because even the former deputy governor of El-Rufai is the same deputy governor that this administration has retained. Because I remember that woman, Adiza also, was the former deputy governor, took out of office for 8 good years. She has taken another oath of office to be in office again. Of course, though there is no any constitutional mandate for a deputy governor because it is always for the governor and all of that. So it leaves you with the simple conclusion that some of the states are doing well. For instance, Plateau State, when this man came, Caleb Mutfan, of course with high expectations, he inherited one insecurity, inherited civil service on strike. He inherited a lot of debts and all of that. And of course, there were no monies there for the man to begin to do something. But out of nothing, this man was able to learn that, of course, last week or so, he was able to actually pay civil servants at least a month's salary out of all that he was able to get. And this tells you that indeed, if he is going to continue this way, I am pretty sure that this man, Barrister Caleb Mutfwa, is a God-fearing person. And of course, he said something so remarkable, which I must actually note it on this platform. When he was asked, when are the civil servants resuming? He said, look, I cannot be wicked enough to tell these guys to come when I have not given them a dime. How will they transport themselves to work? How will they be able to feed for their families? How will they be able to cater for their needs? There are months of salaries that have not been paid. So I will be callous and wicked enough to ask them to return to work without giving them anything. And that is quite understandable, and that is a humane statement, and I applaud him for that. And I expect this to go around in other states. People should be compassionate about the plights of the people, and of course, I know with time we'll get out of the trenches.
So what should be the focus in it? Because as we speak right now, appointments are going on. Yes. These are just few amongst the 28 states that conducted elections, governorship elections. Like, what should be at the forefront when making this appointment? Earlier, we were talking about the fact that we've had in time past, where appointments are being done just to compensate people on nepotic ground, and at the end of the day you see these people not even performing. No wonder some people even at the National Assembly called that some of these agencies should just be closed down. Year in, year out, budgets are being allocated to those agencies and parastatal. Humongous amount of money that cannot even be accounted for. At the end of the day, nothing is being brought back into the system. Some of these public funds are being embezzled by individuals that were entrusted with that position. Maybe on nepotic ground, no wonder the agencies are not being productive. What should form the basis for this appointment beyond, oh, I just want to settle this person that worked for me, or this person was in my team, this particular local government, I won in that place, and all of that? What should be the focus?
Yes, in as much as we want the appointments to cut across all the local governments in Plateau State, for instance, or each and every state, of course, there must be the state outlook. Of course, they are not just governing a particular portion of the state. You are governing the entire state. For instance, I will use Plateau State as a case study. We have 17 local governments. We are not saying that everybody out of these 17 local governments must be appointed. But then there are excellent people that could be found in all these local governments. If truth and sincerity and justice must be done, so that no part of this local government will feel shortchanged and will feel neglected, the governor must ensure that he finds the best of brains in those areas, people that have succeeded, so that they will come and join forces with him and come with their wealth of experience and assist him in actually succeeding. If he succeeds, Plateau State has succeeded. If he fails, Plateau State has failed. So it is not all about political vendetta or compensating political cronies with appointments and actually a lot of what do you call it? Appointments, yes, so to say. And of course, that should not be the driving force. The governor must be careful enough to selecting people who have succeeded, to selecting people who have the willpower or who have the zeal to contribute immensely their quota in ensuring that indeed the state succeeds. We have a lot of challenges. And out of all these local governments that we have so far, the governor has demonstrated, that indeed he is willing and ready to carry everybody along. At the swearing in of the newly appointed officials, he did say that indeed not everybody will get appointed. For the fact that you voted for me, you didn't vote for me because you want me to compensate you with an appointment. You voted for me because you saw the potentials in me, you saw the courage in me, and you saw the sincerity of purpose in my policies, and indeed you voted for me. Allow me to succeed. Pray for me to succeed. Then people will be appointed. He assured people, indeed, some will be appointed now, some will be appointed at a later time. But then the primary objective of all these appointments should not be on nepotic grounds, should not be on religious grounds, but should be, because I have seen even a Muslim being appointed in the government of Caleb Mutfan. I've seen movements.
I think we have a caller. Sorry to cut you.
And for the succeed, I know definitely all what he inherits, he will definitely clear it. That is our prayer for him. And I see him as a resilient person. He has mind to do a lot of things. And God will give him the grace. And that is the reality about it. Then the appointment all over, this is what we are looking for. We are praying for the new people getting in, that they should look at the challenges that the nation is facing, so that we'll have a good future. Thank you very much.
Thank
George.
you so much for
God bless
calling.
you.
Really appreciate you. Thank you. You are the beast of.
Yeah. So I was just trying to drive home the point that even contracts should not just be given to people because you want to compensate them. Of course, let the contracts, the giving of the contracts be open. Let the process be open. People should bid for these contracts and let the best be picked out of it. Because at the end of the day, if you say you want to compensate people who actually have one or two things to benefit from your government, or whom you have one or things to benefit from them, or maybe they contributed funds
we have another caller. Sorry to cut you. Okay, thank you for calling. Please make your contribution.
Hello?
Go on, I can hear you. Make your contribution. I think we lost that call. Please do well to call us.
And so we should not just do as if we want to compensate these people, but then let us look at their pedigree. Let us look at their success papers. Have they succeeded? Have they been able to manage other places? And what is the success story that they have? We should look at all these things. And of course, that notwithstanding the fact that there are people who have to learn for the first time. You don't have to shut them. Once you see the zeal and the charisma in such persons, and of course the willingness to pursue such objectives, which of course is in tandem with your objectives for this government, of course allow them to operate. Because of course there is always a first time. And since there's a first time for everything, the new hands must also be tested. And of course, the youth and women, even people with disabilities, must also be carried along. No human being should be neglected. And of course, even the Constitution has forbidden the issue of discrimination on the basis of sex, on the basis of religion, on the basis of any other parameter that you must look at it. So people should be given that ample opportunity to succeed, so that at the end of the day, we'll sit back and say, indeed, God sent a Messiah for us in human form who came and helped us.
Indeed, that's a very important aspect. Again, let's talk about the citizens. We've had situations where people are being appointed or elected, and at the end of the day, you see the citizens having high expectations, bringing envelopes, expecting this, expecting that, because we actually voted you, or because you are from our place and you were appointed, neglecting the fact that these people have primary responsibility, and not holding them accountable, but having high expectation when it comes to, oh, you are invited for this, you should do this for me, individuals. Now, not even talking about whether constituency or as a state. How can Nigerians and citizens across states set agendas for these political appointees, reduce their expectations, set agendas for them, and hold them accountable to their primary responsibility?
And that is why I've always been telling people, these people you actually voted for them to serve you, they are your servants, 1. 2, they are human beings like you. 3, they have the capacity, the proclivities and tendencies to err. But then, just like we have always said, to err is human, to forgive is divine. You should not have high expectations. It is only God that you have high expectations on him. But a fellow human being, just put yourself in his own position. Would you have done differently if you were there? So if you put high expectations on these people, that is why they will have high disappointments on your expectations, because you have raised the bar, which of course is what God would have done, is what you're expecting human beings to do. But that notwithstanding the fact that once you are voted, you ask for the job, you have been given the job, so you must be ready for all consequences. It's either you sail or you sink in the job you have been given. So I expect that the citizens should moderately look at these people and of course be so lenient, let them calm down and follow them in such a manner that these guys will actually reason with their expectations. But the moment you raise the bar and put it so Herculean for them to even achieve these objectives, at the end of the day, your hopes would have been dashed. And that is not what we are expecting. Let's pray for our leaders. The Bible enjoins us to pray for them. They're human beings. They're capable of error. They're capable of actually making things that at the end of the day will not be in tune with their own policies. And of course, the act of governance is actually a very big one. And that is why you see that an arm of government has been exclusively created for the executive, which is, of course, it has so much powers to be carried out. One of which is the implementation of policies. Because any policy being driven by other arms of government in a constitutional democracy by the principle of the separation of powers, it is the executive that will have the policy powers to actually implement such policies. And this gives you the impression that indeed this is a very big organ of government or arm of government that we must actually consider. So citizens should actually be prayerful. Citizens should actually ensure that their expectations are such that are grantable. And if they are not granted now, that does not mean that the person has failed. It means that indeed there is another opportunity for the person to do more and actually look into your concerns and your problems. Because at the end of the day, believe me or not, this government will not solve everybody's problem. Believe me or not, this government will not remove your poverty from you. But we are looking at the percentage level of people that will be taken out of poverty. is it commensurate to the expectations of the people? And that is what we want. For the fact that it does not come to you does not mean that the government has not succeeded. If your neighbor has succeeded, it therefore means that maybe when the light is beamed, of course, maybe the rays of light might touch your house tomorrow. And so, of course, let's pray for this government to succeed. That is just my expectation.
Thank you so much, Barrister Emmanuel Mense Madaki. Great analysis. Thank you for creating time to talk with us on National Talk. We hope to have you some other time.
I hope to be around each time
Thank
you
you.
call.
Thank you. And to our viewers out there, this is the much we will take on National Talk tonight. Our time is fast spent. Do know that Nigeria is a great country, and together we will make it great when we collectively live up to our responsibility. Manage your expectation, hold leaders accountable. Until we come your way next time on the edition of National Talk, you have a blessed weekend.